Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday night edition of the Real Chat Daddy Show. I am your host, Chat Daddy. Glad to be back with you guys on this hot and humid summer evening. It is Monday, July 27, 2020. We're still yet in the midst of a global pandemic, but I have another great show planned for your viewing and listening pleasure this evening. As you guys all know, I deem the entire month of July my Hotter Than July series. And so tonight, we'll be doing our wonderful culmination of conversation with two women who I just love and adore. They've been here with us all month long, every Monday night, and we've been talking about worldwide conversations and dialogue as they affect us as a race of people, how we deal with each other, our community, our city, and our country and world as a whole. And so tonight we'll continue our wonderful conversation with these two ladies. And as you guys all know, I have all of the top news stories of the weekend, as well as the latest COVID-19 statistics so that we can keep everybody updated. Our conversation later on this evening is going to be relationships in the African-American community and how systematic racism has affected us all. So that should be a really great conversation. Well, let me bring our co-host in tonight. I'm excited to bring these two beautiful ladies back in. And somebody got the memo that we're supposed to be wearing, I guess, gold tonight. This is all about royalty, and I see nothing but beauty and sheer elegance as I'm about to click both of these ladies in. Our first guest co-host is Alicia L. Ross, and as you guys all know, she's extremely opinionated. She's passionate about our people, and every week she's done what's necessary, and I cannot believe it's been a month. Let's welcome back to the show, Alicia L. Ross. How are you? Hey.
Hey, how are you tonight?
I'm doing wonderful. I see you got the memo that said make sure you wear a little gold. Maybe this is our royal regal evening of goldness. I don't know. How you doing?
I think so. I'm doing well. Glad to be here. I cannot believe it has been a month, Chet. A whole month that we've been on here sharing, talking, listening to people giving their thoughts, advice, opinions. It's been really great to be with you and to be with Carroll.
Oh, thank you so much. Always an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us. And as I already have forecast and predicted, I'm putting Dr. Ross. You know, that's just the way I'm doing it. Because you're going to kill it. You're going to slam it. You're going to be just like our next guest. We love and adore her as well, too. She's been in higher education for a number of years. She's an amazing person. I love her energy and spirit. And what I like most about Dr. Carroll is whenever she says something, it's almost like, you know, the mother of the earth has told us, now this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show, Dr. Carroll Collins. I got it right. Yeah, I get it better every time. At least I work on it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our other co-host. Hello, Dr. Carroll. How are you? Hey.
How you doing?
Good. How you doing tonight? Good to see you. Is that going on too, Doctor?
Well, team, this is my mother's shirt. So I'm channeling my mother's energy. I wanted to wear it tonight. It's more like a muted dark brown and olive with some purple hints.
Oh.
But it's all about mom tonight. So I feel her presence, and I wanted to wear her shirt.
Now that's amazing that I would say she's like talking to the mother of the earth. Now we don't rehearse this show. We really don't talk before the show. And here we all have on some kind of rich, you know, colors and have a story behind our outfit. So ladies, I'm glad to see you both. Dr. Carroll, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. I also want to say that these earrings, since we're talking fashion, Chad and Alicia, are the lovely designs. I remember we talked before about African-American businesses. So these designs, I have to rep my sister, designer Dasu, Design Delights LTD. So these shells here with the Italian glass, this is all about family tonight. So I think it really is befitting for our actual topic.
Oh, very good. All right. Well, ladies, let's get into tonight's hot topics and news. Illinois health officials announced Monday 1,213 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. Unfortunately, we had 18 additional deaths in the last 24 hours. And now we're looking at this being the sixth day straight with more than 1,200 new cases of COVID-19. This brings the total state numbers to 172,655 cases. Our death total is now 7,416, and that's in all 102 counties of Illinois. So it covers all of, 102 counties here in Illinois. And so the numbers seem to be going back up. And today, Mayor Lori Lightfoot announced that as of Friday, people who have been going to Wisconsin for the weekend or to their summer homes, they will now be required to do the 14-day quarantine, in place because now Wisconsin is having a lot of situations and problems. Ladies, how are you dealing with all the COVID stuff now?
Oh, wow. Trying not to be overwhelmed. Number one, I did not hear about the latest statistics for today. That's overwhelming to a certain degree. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm doing all the precautions that I need to take, wearing the mask, social distancing. When I do go out, also, making sure I'm eating healthier, and as well as taking all the herbal supplements that I personally take, to make sure that my immune system is built up stronger, sharing information with loved ones about things that I think, that I know have worked with me, and a loved one sharing with me as well. Some of the things that they've been doing, because that's the main thing. We have to continue to build up our immune system. We have to, of course, continue to be diligent about the social distancing. We have to wear masks. Like, that is a real thing. Despite what others are saying or may have tried to do, we have seen time and time again those who have been fighting that. Unfortunately, some have succumbed to the virus. So we have to be diligent. We don't know 100% what it all entails, what all the symptoms entail, but we have to do our part. We have to think logically. We have to use our wisdom, and then therefore we have to follow, the guidelines and stick to them. I know, again, at one point we were told in the beginning, don't wear a mask. It's not that, I was wearing a mask, honestly.
Yeah.
And so now, of course, it's a mandate, for the most part in a lot of states, and enforced as best as possible. So we have to be diligent. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do. Dr. Carroll, any thoughts on the latest numbers? We had thought this would wean off. I think all of us on this show pretty much agree. We know that, the worst has not hit us as of yet, because, again, we're seeing in other countries a rise in numbers. But this weekend, our numbers are definitely back up, and that may mean more restrictions on things. What do you think, Dr. Carroll?
Well, I think I agree with Alicia, of course, in terms of how do we take care of ourselves to be as healthy as possible. So I'm doing the same thing she's doing as it relates to wearing a mask, trying to ensure that I socially distance, not to the point where it becomes rude. Because when you're in the grocery stores, there's always a little bit of passing by in the aisles and things of that nature where you're not necessarily 6 feet apart. But respecting space and being aware of others respecting my space has been the order of the day. But not trying to leave the human spirit behind. There are still times when people are greeting and hello, how are you, and encouraging one another. And I think we can never forget that as an American society. But what really rings for me right now is calling on all people to use our understanding of what democracy means, which of course is individual liberty, but really being cognizant of the importance of the common good. So I'm saying to everybody, as I'm trying to practice safety precautions, please practice safety precautions because that supports the common good. So again, I'm saying to those folks that I've seen out there without masks, let's think about others too, not only ourselves, but others. And then we can adopt a common practice that will hopefully curtail some of these numbers. I do firmly believe that we had the spike because folks got careless. And that's unfortunate because we don't want to go 2 steps forward and 10 steps backward. So to everyone out there, yes, democracy, do what you feel. If that's the definition people hold of democracy, there's something else that is truly, truly important to the American psyche and the American creed, which is respecting the common good. And right now, the common good is that all of us survive and be as healthy as possible in this pandemic.
Yes, I could not agree with you more. I was out in the South Suburbs this past Saturday and was in a supermarket, and a gentleman and his son, other race, came in and, was walking around the store with no mask on, and I'm, about to have a panic attack. But what I love more than anything, people of his own race was looking at him and his son like they were crazy as hell. And they, and they would look and stare and look and stare. And I happened to end up getting in the line of the cashier who checked them out. And I said to her, I said, I had your back earlier. I saw the man and his son get in your line. And she said, oh, it's very common. She said, this store will not, force people to wear their masks because they don't want to lose the business. They don't want to hear the drama. But I went to a store here in the city today that's associated with that same store. And they had a guy at the door like a bouncer at the club. And he was like, yo, y'all need to have a mask on before you come up in here. So I don't know, if that was a case of suburbia, not really to enforce that, where today in the hood, brother was like, oh, hell no, y'all gonna wear a mask up in here. So, right, he was handing out plastic bags for people that didn't have a mask, to put over their face or whatever. So I don't know. It's just one of those situations.
And that's unfortunate. Being in the northern suburbs, I know that there are stores out here that actually are still have not stopped wiping off like if you go to a grocery store, wiping off the cart, they have people who they've employed to wipe off the cart, make sure the carts are clean. I mean, I still wear my gloves, and then also have lines. There are some stores that still are limiting people, the number of people who are going to be in the stores. But I want to say this, I have noticed up here also, people not wearing masks, whether it was in the store or outside where there are, groups of people being gathered, in particular young people. And as I have read recently, there are a large population of young people up here who have been infected. And so then the other point I want to make, I know that we were told it was about, the Black and brown communities will be affected more. Number one, because there's certain health issues. Number two, because of, the disparity in the health insurance that's afforded to us, in particular, those of us who work, who are essential workers, who are in those stores and have been in those stores since the beginning because they continue their work to provide for us when we go into the grocery stores or to the gas stations, and then some other necessary stores of essential needs. The thing is, it affects everyone, no matter what color you are, no matter what your race, your ethnicity is, and no matter what age. And we're not the only country. So if it's affecting other countries of different hues, of different ages, it's affecting us too. It's a pandemic, not an epidemic. So please, everyone, be diligent and do not allow yourself to point fingers at others and think that it is them and not us. It is all of us. And that is why we all have to come together. And some people have during this pandemic. And these are some of the things that we will talk about as well tonight in our topics.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot agree with you ladies more. Well, continuing on in the show, Mayor Lori Lightfoot announced today a $33 million in funding from a federal coronavirus relief bill that will go toward housing grants, including mortgages and rental assistance for the city of Chicago residents. Residents can apply for the series of programs through the city's website at chi.gov/housing help. Those making up to 50% of the area's minimum income, which will receive between 3 to 6 months of rental support from the Department of Family and Support Services, with the amount being awarded to based on needs, officials say, and the other half of the funds, roughly 15% of the medium income, will go for people with housing assistance. And the application process runs from July 27th and it closes August 10th. So if anybody in the Chicagoland area is having trouble paying their mortgage or their rent, there is assistance and programs out there to help you here in the city of Chicago. So that's a good thing to know, right, ladies?
Yes.
Very good. Well, over the weekend, we had the passing of 3 major celebrities. One of them was television legend, Mr. Regal Philbin. He died at the age of 88, and Regis actually was somebody who touched my heart. Regis had tried television many years prior to him becoming a huge success. He was actually on a show with Joey Bishop. That show did not last long. He had tried his hand at other TV shows, and then he was given the opportunity to host a morning show alongside with Kathy Lee Gifford, and for many years was a huge success at that show. And so Regis Philbin, one of the nicest men you ever want to meet, dead at the age of 88. You ladies are big fan. Were you fans of Regis Philbin?
I was. I loved Regis and Kathy Lee. I think they were an excellent team. I know that it became Regis and Kelly, and I think that was a very successful run also. But I just recall the chemistry that I recalled seeing and experiencing with Regis and Kathy Lee. I thought that was a very nice duo. The way in which they were able to kind of bounce off each other and joke, but yet also address important topics. And although I never met Regis Philbin, I would say that as a viewer, the spirit that emanated seemed to be an approachable, positive, real individual. So I would say to his family, God bless his legacy, and he lived a very nice, long life and has made a great impact in the broadcasting community, I'm sure.
Yes, he did. Absolutely. Alicia, anything you want to say about the late Mr. Regis Philbin?
Yes, I mean, I definitely agree with what Carroll said. And interesting, a cousin and I were just talking about him earlier last week as we were talking about TV personalities, and we were talking about the difference in his show with Kathy Lee and then with Kelly. So it was interesting, to hear of his passing on the weekend. And he is one of the American icons. And as Carroll mentioned, he seemed to be the type of person that people have spoken about, that he seemed to portray publicly. It seemed as if that was who he was privately. And again, to echo, yes, blessings to his family, all of his loved ones who shared platforms with him, who shared family ties and friendships. I wish the best for them during this time. And glad that we had him here in our American society, and I'm sure shared all over the world.
Yes, absolutely. Other celebrities who passed away this weekend was actress Olivia de Havilland. She passed away at 104 years old. For those of you that may not be familiar with de Havilland's name, she is one of the original dolls or actresses of the golden era, movies like Gone with the Wind. As I tell people, these were my great-great-grandmother's movies and my grandmother's movies. And these were people that, you know, were major superstars, much like your Brad Pitts and your, you know, Angela, oh my God, I can't even think of who I was getting ready to say. Brad Pitt, Viola Davis, on that level of actress was Miss Olivia de Havilland, and she died at 104 years old. Man, that's a good life, ladies, to live to 104. That's a blessing. You know what I'm saying? Yes.
And then, especially if you have your faculties. I'm recalling my grandmother on my father's side. My father's mother lived to 102. And I don't know how Olivia exited, but I remember my grandmother probably about a few weeks before her 102nd birthday. She called me over. I was visiting her in Indianapolis in her home, her facility, care facility. And she said, Carroll, come here, Carroll. She still remembered my name and everything. And so I leaned down and I came to her ear and she says, Carroll, I'm tired. I'm tired. And I said, Granny, you got to hang on. I said, your 102nd birthday is coming in a few weeks. And she said, okay. And so when it came time for the birthday, we had all the elders together. My father was able to come. He was approaching 80 or so at the time. He was about 80. He was there and uncles were there and family were there. And I recall that she actually said to me that morning, and she whispered again, she said, I waited. And I just remember I smiled and said, yes, you did, Granny. And it must have been probably no more than 2 weeks after her 102nd birthday that they called me and said she'd made her transition. So she did it her way. And so I hope that Olivia de Havilland had her faculties, was able to understand the journey. And if I recall, she was in Gone with the Wind, and she was a nice one.
Yeah,
wasn't she the nice one? She wasn't Scarlett O'Hara.
No, she's right. She
nice
was
right.
Right. She was the nice one.
Oh my God. My best friend, her mom lived to be 101 and was still in her faculties. Still knew a handsome man when she saw one, and a handsome man when she saw one, and all of that. So it just makes me wonder, you know, as people get older, what gives them that, you know, just finesse to be able to still keep their faculties. And that's one of the things that we need to learn. Is it, you know, what they eat? Is it, you know, the way they think? I don't know. It's amazing to me. Ladies, I mean, to live to be that old is incredible to me, you know? Yes.
Yeah.
Very incredible.
Very good. Dr. Carroll, your story, Anita Putman says, very priceless story. It really is.
Thank you so much. Yes.
The next death that we had is legendary guitarist and singer, British born, Mr. Peter Green, and he is the founder of one of my favorite groups, Fleetwood Mac. And he passed away at the age of 73. And I tell people, being a little black boy from the south side of Chicago, Fleetwood Mac was my escape music, or music that I learned in other genres. That was not James Brown. That was not, you know, the LaBelles or any of that. But Fleetwood Mac was one of those groups that I did enjoy when I was much younger. I'm sure both of you ladies know of a good Fleetwood Mac song.
Yes, definitely. And I'm also thinking of some videos from Fleetwood Mac. And I actually didn't hear that news, so I'm sorry to hear that. You know, all things considered, as we're talking about people who have lived to be a centenarian, 73 is a fairly young age, but he has given us, he and the rest of the band have given us some great music through the generations, from the 60s to the 90s and early 2000s, actually. I'm reminded of the song Turnaround, right? And the video that goes with it. I won't sing it here, but that is one of my favorites.
Yes.
I sung a little.
Yes. Very good. Dr. Carroll, any Fleetwood Mac moments?
I know Fleetwood Mac team. Was that Stevie Nicks?
Yeah.
Singer?
Yeah.
Okay, I do remember. I can't recall the songs, and I have to admit, I'm kind of an 80s girl, so it was like Van Halen. But we pay ode to the rock music of the era, 70s, 80s. I guess you've got some of the 90s with Kurt Cobain, and I mean that era was definitely one that defined a portion of American influence in music across this world. So I give all big ups to the long-haired rock folk. It made their impact.
Baby, rock on!
Right.
Rock on, baby!
Right. Most definitely.
Yes, amen. Very good. All right, ladies. Well, let's continue to move on in the news. Well, for the millions that are unemployed, everybody is waiting with bated breath to find out if they will be getting an extension on their unemployment benefits, as well as a new stimulus package has been announced. The unemployment was an extra $600 a week. That will come to an end. I think yesterday was the last day you can kind of certify for it. So I think for most people, there may be one more check. They're now talking about reducing it from $600 a week extra to now $200 a week extra. So I'm trying to figure out, would that be what your projected amount was to begin with, and then they'll give you an extra $200, or is it just $200 a week? Because if it's just $200 a week, it's going to be a lot of folks out there doing things they ain't got no business doing, because at least that extra $600 helps people to get back on their feet, stimulate the economy, do things like that. But, really $200 a week does not do much for anybody. And I know the incentive is for people to get back to work and do what's necessary. But as I said to you ladies last week, or either I said it to another guest, ain't nobody been calling about no job, man. I'm signed up for all of the Indeeds and all of these services that used to send me 1 million emails a day about positions. Now I'm lucky if I get one email from them a week. And so where do they think people are going to get jobs? And you can't go anywhere to interview for these jobs. What do you think about that, lady?
Yeah, I think so I think what they're proposing is the 200 instead of 600. They're taking off 600 week. They're going to take off 400 and give the, like as you mentioned, Chad, $200 a week. But think about the loss of that $400 for families who are using that for groceries, for helping actually to pay the rents, in particular to the landlords who are still requiring for those rents to be paid on time. A transportation for those people who are going to work, in particular the essential workers. That's a huge chunk of money, $400 taken off per week. And as you mentioned, that also therefore helps to stimulate the economy. And so therefore to take that away, I believe is we're going to see some big losses on all different levels economically. And then I agree, what jobs are hiring, because the thing is there are jobs that are hiring. There are companies, organizations that are hiring. Essential workers are needed still in so many different places. If you're in the healthcare, there are various different healthcare positions that are available now. But there are other positions that are not available that would otherwise be available because people are interviewing online. And jobs, not every job is able to offer remote or virtual employment. And some are able to offer to a certain degree, but things have changed for absolutely everyone. And to change this in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of our numbers going up, across the country, and as we approach the flu season, then that is impacted on the health disparities that are going on. In particular with our children, where parents have to be home with their children. Parents, guardians need to be home with their children, taking care of their children and or providing some type of health provision for them. They're not thinking too clearly because things, are not going to necessarily change for the better because of the various different issues that are coming up. And they need to really go back to the table and think about this, is my opinion.
Yes, I agree. Dr. Carroll, any comment or feedback you want to give on that?
Well, we keep hearing this reset, right? We keep hearing this term, this is a reset. I've heard that a lot of people have said this. And it just makes me think about, what does that mean as it relates to our notions of family? I know tonight we're going to speak a lot about the family. What does it mean to be family? What does it mean to be your brother's keeper? She ain't heavy, she's my sister. What does that mean for each and every one of us? Is there a return to folks looking out for one another from the extended family concept? Is there a return to, I'm going to help you out so that you don't sink? Because if you sink, then it makes it more apt for me to sink, because we're all connected in this world community. So I am very pleased that there's opportunities to get a little relief. And definitely people should get whatever they can get. But I think it also calls into question how we will continue as a group of people, especially as African Americans, coming from a legacy of mutual support, the communal existence that was very, very prevalent in our historical understandings, whether it be the South, those of us who have direct descendants from the South, which most of us do. Also, whether it be the African philosophy, whether it be one of communalism, or the East African Ubuntu philosophy that has to do with that collective support, looking out for one another. So I think all of this calls into question, where do we go from here in terms of looking out for one another? I know that during this season, as one who has a son, one who has a college-age son, allowing his roommate to shelter in place was a decision that I made so that he would be able to be safe, and understanding what economic restraints he and his family had on them for him to return to his country. I chose to say, you can shelter here. And so is a very powerful the relationship building. I think it has helped my son in terms of the sadness that the people are feeling by not being in school. They're kind of experiencing that together, working through that together as a team. So there's a lot of ways in which we can support one another. I have seen restaurants. I will say that when I visited Soul Vegetarian East not too long ago, they were giving away samples of food. They had supplies that they were giving to individuals on the sidewalk. So there's a lot of ways in which folks are extending to one another, even in the midst of the challenges. So I think we're going to have to look to one another to say, okay, if I have a little more, is this an opportunity for me to share? I mean, there's such a great feeling in sharing, and just a little sharing can mean so much. I know that each one of us has to look out for our own economic condition, but nonetheless, this is the time that really calls on our character as individuals and as a society, as a country.
So, Dr. Carroll, your son has a roommate that's from another country, and you decided to let the roommate stay in your home with your son to keep from going back to his country.
Yes, Chad and Alicia, because unfortunately, they're shutting down the borders, and when you're talking about a young African brother getting the opportunity to come to the States and get an education here, that's just an added pressure for that individual to have to face. Will I be able to get back from my country? Economically, it's not feasible and was not feasible for this young man. And so I think it's also a lesson in humility for my son too, that they work collaboratively, support one another so that they can both succeed. Again, each one reach one. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. if two young African men of African descent, one born on the continent, one born in the States, if they can both make it through college, isn't that better for the entire country? Yes, it is. So there are ways in which we can all support one another. And I think we need to turn to each other and say, do I have something, just a little bit, that I can spare in this season? Is it one less pair of shoes, one less dress, one less suit? Because as you mentioned, there are not that many interviews going on. So if we're interviewing via the platform, we don't need the full suit. We only need the shirt, right? We only need from the waist up. And those are some of the joking commercials which joke about what people are really wearing when they're interviewing. But nonetheless, it may be a time when we do a little bit of giving and shedding to other folks during these times in our history, in our present.
I love it, Doctor. I do. It's also what people are wearing every night when they do a show on the air, too. So don't ever ask me to.
What'd you say, Chad? Don't go below the belt, right?
If the doorbell was to ring right now, I would not get up and go get it. Right. So yes, absolutely. Yes, Dr. Carroll, I think that is so beautiful that you decided to do that. And that's something, yes, you would do. You know what I'm saying? So that is really beautiful to provide that young man somewhere to stay so that he would not have to go back to his, homeland. I just think
that it's been beautiful for me to experience when I'm experiencing the resilience. It makes me think about how some of our international students, as we think about Alicia and I's goal worldwide, how so many of our international students are experiencing this situation, not only from the standpoint of I'm in another country trying to get my credentials so that I can be productive and perhaps go back to my nation and make it a better place. But not only that, but to experience a pandemic and be so far away from your loved ones. That's a very scary situation. And so many of the international students have faced the decision, did I try to get on a plane in March or April? Did I have the money to get on a plane and go home? Some of them have been asked to go home in some ways, based on the uncertainty of the future. And others have tried to find the way in which they could stay, knowing that perhaps going home was very, very uncertain for them. And so it's not only a way to try to support the livelihood and the long-term success of another young person in this society, but it's also a blessing to be able to become more humble, more giving. So I consider it a blessing to us also that my son has had that opportunity. I've had that opportunity. His father has helped and had that opportunity, as it is for that young man who has been able to benefit from that opportunity.
I think it's the most beautiful thing ever. And imagine the bond that they will have the rest of their life. Not only college roommates, but now brothers, in the spirit. And so thank you so much for what you've done. And hopefully it'll inspire other people to do the same. Alicia, anything you want to add to that before we move on?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I know that Carroll has shared with me the story of this young man and his family and his living arrangements, both here in the States and outside of the country. And so I think it's great. And I know that people are doing this, people are opening up their homes, to the college students that have to remain here. When we had that scare a couple of weeks ago with the government trying to propose that international students had to leave if they were going to do remote learning. So grateful that actually did not come to pass, because I know for certain that has saved a lot of the students. And then, at my university, I know that they have been offering provisions for students, for international students in particular. There are a lot of international students at U of I, Urbana-Champaign, and they have been constantly keeping us in communication, letting us know about all the provisions that they're providing both on and off campus. So, there are universities that are doing this. There are families, that are opening their homes, such as Carroll and others. And that is what we're supposed to do. We are supposed to be coming together because, this is part of the extended family. And this is part of the extended American family, if you will. Because we're all in this together, as the slogan continues to go on regarding the pandemic. And that is what we want to talk about tonight, about how the extended family has been there for each and every one of us on so many different levels. And now with this pandemic, on a level that we couldn't have even imagined, but you have people like Carroll and others who are saying, you know what, it's not even a extra thought to have someone come and stay and live, and I know, people are constantly keeping in contact with others during this time, our elder family members, those that we can visit, those that we cannot, sending love, making phone calls, getting on Zoom webinars. So all of this is keeping us connected and reminding us of the American fabric, and in particular within our community of the African American fabric.
All right, very good. Well, for those of you all that are just joining us, welcome to the Monday night edition of the Real Chat Daddy Show. I am your host, Chat Daddy. I am here Monday through Thursday nights, 7 until 8:30. Sometimes 9 o'clock. This is our time. This is not right. We don't have to worry about commercials. We don't have to worry about any of that. This is an open dialogue where we talk about issues that affect you, your family, your community, your city, our country, and the world as a whole. Tonight, I have two amazing guest co-hosts who have been here with me every Monday night during the month of July. This is my Hotter Than July series where we're talking about conversations that affect us and how we need to have these in-depth conversations. These two ladies in the boxes next to me are absolutely incredible women. I just love and adore them. And so tonight we're going to talk about relationships in the African American community and how systematic racism has affected us. I need you guys to do me a huge favor. Go over to YouTube, subscribe to the Real Chat Daddy Show page. It's very simple, easy, it's free. You won't receive any magazines in the mail. It's a fun time. I won't be at your door on Saturday morning talking about, did you subscribe to my show? I will not do any of that. But if you do subscribe to the show, it helps to build the show, and it will allow sponsors to look at this show. Also, go to Facebook. The Real Chat Daddy Show on Facebook is where you can find me as well, too. And I appreciate you guys being here. Ladies, I'm going to turn the floor over to you two because I have a feeling that I'm going to have a lot of rebuttal to what you guys are going to say tonight. I've been reading through my notes, and because you ladies are in academia and you ladies, have really studied this, I've studied this from the hood man level, and I'm going to give you all the flip side of all of these dynamics of what you're bringing tonight. So which one of you ladies, I'm telling you, there's a hood side to all of this. There's a flip side to everything we're going to talk about. So who's going to start our conversation off tonight?
Well, I first want to do a dedication. This is our final show. What we want to do is we want to, as Carol referenced earlier, and as you just opened up, this is a show about relationships, in particular about family, the African American family, but also the American family as a whole. And hi, Godmommy. And the thing is that Chat, you and I have lost a lot of loved ones, as you mentioned, since February, and myself, as well. And in particular, one of my young angels in our family, James Philbin, has recently passed away. He was 17 years old. No, it was not COVID related, but nonetheless, we have lost someone who was very dear to us. And as we were preparing for the show, I immediately started thinking that we need to talk about relationships. We need to talk about families. We need to talk about the extended family and how our extended family, like, you know, my godmom, you know, Pearl Davis, who just popped in, you know, have been people who have helped to raise us, whether we grew up in a single family home or whether we grew up in a home with both parents. You know, in particular in our community, I know that, you know, Hillary Clinton coined the phrase publicly, it takes a village, but that is something that we coined for centuries. You know, back on the continent, it is about a village. And this is something that we want to talk about. So we want to dedicate the show to our loved ones who have recently passed and who are now our angels guiding us in all the ways that God is providing, as well, in addition to Carol's primary angel, her mother, who has passed away within the year. So that is why we decided to make this last show, this final show for July, to be, you know, an honor to our loved ones. You know, our mothers, our fathers, our aunts, our uncles, our cousins, our brothers, our sisters, and all of those family members that we have adopted, our godmoms, our godfathers, and all the aunties and uncles that we have accumulated over the years because of family-friend relationships. And then therefore we want to talk about why is it that we have, you know, we had to lean more on the extended family here, in particular in our American society, and what has been some of those breakdowns? What are some of those institutional systems, those systems that have broken down or tried to break down our communities, but actually have not been successful and will not be successful? And as we mentioned, you know, this is about American society, not just about the African American society.
Oh, I love it. I do. Dr. Carroll, do you want to add anything to that? I'm sure you do.
Thank you, Alicia, for sharing our goal to pay reverence to the loved ones, the angels, and the ancestors. Definitely, that's part of this evening segment. But I think we also want to make sure that folks who are viewing know that we're calling on the family, and I will say especially the Black family, to take a long, deep, hard look at where we are today and where we were yesterday and where we need to be tomorrow. And so that means that this is not a way to appease. Our goal tonight is to not appease the Black family. We celebrate the successes of the Black family. And I agree with Alicia, we are looking at the global family, all families. But as we are here in the wake of Mr. George Floyd, as we are here in the wake of many going to the streets speaking about Black Lives Matter, we have to turn our lens into look at ourselves. So we're asking for folks to go to the mirror and look into the mirror. As we call on other communities to support anti-racist behaviors and to work in cohesion with African American and other folks of color, we must also look at ourselves and ask ourselves, to what level do we value ourselves, so that we, in fact, will do what is necessary to ensure that our communities are as healthy as they need to be. That means healthy in terms of their infrastructure, healthy in terms of sociological, psychological, mental health issues, physical health issues, economically healthy, safety and security. We can go on and on and on about what constitutes a healthy community. But our segment tonight is about a look at others and how others have impacted the overall growth and condition of the Black family and other families in this society. And also, what are we doing as a community to ensure that we are giving ourselves the best that we've got? And that's something Anita said, giving you the best that I've got. I remember that. You know, we love some Anita. So are we giving ourselves as a Black community the best that we have as we think about our own community? So that also is part of our goal tonight. Because as we leave this platform, chat, we want people to really think about next steps. We're in a very pivotal situation right now. We've seen the murder of Mr. Floyd. The society has responded with some major protesting, folks calling on a focus on racism and systemic racism and what that means, what it doesn't mean, what's necessary to achieve the American dream, liberty, justice, equality for all. We're very much focused on that. But in that focus, there has to be a look in the mirror. The man in the mirror, we talked about that, I think, last time, Michael Jackson's slogan. The man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror. What are each one of us doing to make our condition better? So there's definitely a focus on self-responsibility tonight.
Very good. All right, ladies. Well, I love that. I think it's a great topic. The first thing we're going to talk about is family, the two-parent home. Now, I remember when I was in elementary school, it was very much about that two-parent household. It was only until I had one particular friend who told me, oh, my daddy lived with his other wife and he not with my mama no more. And that threw me. I had never heard that because I came from a mama and daddy in the house. Most households that I knew of had a mom and a daddy in the house. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was jealous because he got extra Christmas gifts because, of course, the daddy and the stepmother would buy him something, but then the mother and her new man would buy him something. And I was like, well, dang, how I get an extra daddy or extra mama? But then little did I know, our entire society started to fall apart and we saw far few, two-parent households. What's the makeup and what caused the demise of our two-parent households, ladies?
I think the demise started a long time ago. I'm reminded of what Mr. Cotton said this weekend. Senator Cotton from Arkansas, when he said slavery was the necessary evil. Slavery was evil, but it wasn't necessary. And the thing is, when we were taken from the various different homelands that we were taken from, in Africa, and then brought to this land, that system already started breaking down. That is when it started breaking down. Now, yes, history also tells us about our brothers and sisters and ancestors therefore who were a part of the system, but that's another conversation, and the depth of what that means for them selling us into slavery is another conversation for hopefully another time. But that is where it started. There are many books. You have Jawanza Kundufe, Dr. Naeem Akbar, who talks about, how the families have been broken down from the beginning of slavery, and that is a psychological thing that has carried on to who we are today. And then you have the various different systems that have been put in place. Here you have the Moynihan Report back in the 1960s, who tried to address the issues of the Black family unit. But there were disparities in the Moynihan Report about who we are as a family. And not only that, when you start labeling and putting names on who we are, when you start defining that we are this and we are that, as any human being, we will encapsulate that and say, yes, this is who I am. Again, it's a psychological thing. And then you have the systems thereof, financially, the opportunities that are available are not available. Even to this day, we're still fighting, economic equality within the work system in every industry. And then you have the equality as far as male, female, and then there's impacted with, being a person of color, an African-American person. So where did it start? It started a long time ago. That's why we have to continue to talk about where we come from, who we were as a family unit, and then talk about how is it we're going to address these issues. And obviously, Senator Cotton is still talking about it. He had the nerve to say that slavery was a necessary evil. It was not, but it was evil.
Interesting. Dr. Carroll, your feedback on this?
Definitely. Slavery was a necessary evil for those who sought to build American wealth on the back of a race of people. That's what made it necessary. It made it necessary for America to become the economic giant it is today. That's what made it necessary. So it's all about that context. And I'm with Alicia 150% on that. Was it necessary to institute a system of chattel slavery, which annihilated a group of people, their very identity, their physical, their mental, their social standing, to rape them from in the physical sense and in the psychological sense? No, it was not necessary. But if it was a situation that warranted being able to become an economic giant, all right, then we will what? We will justify anything, which is why slavery system justified 3/5 of a human, which was a definition for Black peoples. As it relates to the impact on the family, we have to be very clear in understanding that anytime a system or a group of people want to weaken an individual, the first thing that one does is they weaken the family. And we see that with organized crime. I'm not an expert on organized crime, but we know often organized crime, when there is a hit on someone, let's say, that also extends to the loved ones, which weakens that individual. We know that when it comes to the issue of slavery, that in order to defy the idea of Black folks being an actual unit, an actual family, it's very critical to present slaves as having no root. The child had no parent. The Black woman had no husband. The Black man had no wife. They were just individual pieces of property. And that was critically important to what? To weaken the sense of stability, the sense of having a place, a foundation. When we think about the idea of namesake, and we look across the world, team, and we look across and see how people adhere to their name, primarily most societies are patriarchal societies. We take our father's name. There are matriarchal societies. We know that. But most societies, we take our father's name. Now, when we think about the slave system and we think about some of the horrific situations that occurred on those plantations with the rape of African women, all of a sudden the child had no name. In essence, the child became the mother's child, meaning that there was no desire for any linkage or any legal linkage to the father. There was no appropriation for that. And therefore that biracial child, the product of the slave mother and the European American father, was a child who had no rights to wealth at all. Not even the ability to support perhaps the betterment of that Black mother over time. So it's a very deliberate system. It's a system that has continued to permeate. When we move up to the welfare system in this society, we see that very deliberately the presence of that father was halted, because it then would create what? A family unit. A family unit, a solid block. We're in this together. So therefore you have numerous women, right, in their desire to have a life, to have a family. Yes, they were what? Their children without a marriage, without a father in the home, which subsequently led to many, many children being raised without the nuclear family. Now, I want to make it clear, I give all big ups to all the single Black mothers out there, right, who have done great jobs in raising their children, and the single Black fathers who have done great jobs in raising their children. But when we look at the strength of how other communities have built their wealth, all right, even if we look at some of our immigrant communities, Asian communities, who have built and amassed such great wealth in this United States of America, it has been done through a communal collaborative experience where they have worked together and supported one another, whether it be generation through generation within the same family, or even culturally supporting and building themselves as a community. And I think it's very important that we look at that as we think about the Great Migration from the South, African Americans moving up to get better jobs due to the horrific conditions of Jim Crow, the formations of cities like Chicago, Detroit, the big hitters with large Black populations, right? We think about what that did to the Black family. Many of those families were decimated. They moved up to the North, and it was every man, every woman for themselves. They may have started out with auntie, as Alicia said, godmother was there in the North, but very soon those communities meant that those folks were on their own. And so you had that individualism, which only is beneficial if you really have stability. If you do not have stability, being on your own is not a beneficial condition.
Mm-hmm. Wow, interesting to say the least. You know what I liked what you said, and what I noticed from other races is that at one point we all used to live in the same household together, a generational household. I know of some situations where some people have grown up in big, beautiful homes, and the home never exchanged hands of anybody other than the original owner. And whenever people needed to come back and have some place to live, lay their head, maybe the wayward daughter and her children, or whatever the case may be, this was the family house. But we no longer have that dynamic of the family house anymore. And other minorities, they do have that. The Asian community, it'll be 10 to 12 of them in one apartment. The Hispanic community, it might be 10 to 12 of them in one unit. But we are like, honey, I can't stay with y'all for a weekend. So I know I can't stay with y'all a lifetime. And so what has made us so grandiose, we don't want to stay around our own people, is my question.
Well, Alicia, may I address that? I just wanted to share something that really touched, thank you, Alicia, that really touches upon what you just said, Chad, about grandiose. What has made us, what you said was powerful, what has made us so grandiose that we don't want to stay around our own people. I think that the examination of the psyche of some of our Black peoples, African Americans in this country, has to go to what we place as a value. And in response to your question, Chad, is it grandiose or is it a lack of self-love? That's just a question up for us. Maybe we can discuss it today. Mm-hmm. When you think about all of those communities that you've spoken of, who have come here, immigrant communities, in order and develop their empires here in the United States of America. Yes, some of those communities have gotten tax breaks or various loan support and things of that nature, and we know that that's documentable. However, there is something that is innately within those communities, and that is a pride of their lineage, a belief that they can achieve. And there are those who don't agree with the work of Dr. John Agbu, who was a noted Nigerian anthropologist, because he speaks of involuntary, involuntary, and voluntary immigrants. And one of the keys to understanding voluntary immigrants, those who come on their own, is that they come with a background, a lineage, their own markers for success. They're coming from countries where they know what success looks like in their country, and they're proud of that. Involuntary immigrants like African Americans, all right, who did not choose to come to this country, and in some cases, Native Americans, although they were in this country, the whole format of this country and the European integration to the country took away much of their culture, much of their stronghold in this country. So in a sense, they were enslaved in a different way. But involuntary immigrants do not have a context for success that is reflective of who they are. Their visions of success is often defined by the other. That's why you will hear African Americans using things like, you talk like a white person, or into anti-intellectualism. Oh, you don't want that. And who do you think, you're better than others? Those kind of statements. Because unfortunately, we've not had the opportunity really to, throughout time, form our own belief systems about what constitutes full success in our own community. So I think in some way, Chad, and of course, this is just me as an individual here on this platform. You know, I can't say this is research-based. It is not. But what I would say is that I wonder if the grandiose attitude is one that's really not one that reflects, is really one that reflects some sort of, I've arrived beyond my Blackness. I don't want to stay with you because you reflect what I truly am. I've arrived beyond my Blackness. And that's what's so unfortunate, because I can't say that other communities, especially communities of color, other groups feel that way about their own community.
Well, you know, I thought for many years that, you know, when a lot of Blacks had moved to Chicago, got these good jobs and were doing well, they would go back to the South, visit relatives who still were not maybe doing economically as well as they should be. And that was a way of being, you know, grandiose. Here we come in the big Cadillac. Here we come, you know, handing out gifts. Here we come to show everybody some love. And then you disappear and leave your people in the dust. But then you provide them somewhere to stay when they come to the North. And I think that has been the story of most of our family makeup for years.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with, you know, what Carroll is saying also. Gosh, there, you know, the thing, what I think is we have allowed ourselves, some of us within our community have allowed ourselves to say, oh, I have the American dream, which we know is materialistic, it's capitalistic, which is fine. We live in a capitalistic society. But what we have allowed ourselves to do, what some of us allowed ourselves to do, is to allow that to take over what is really innate, you know, what is spiritual, what is emotional, which is giving back, you know, pulling the family back up. The thing is, we are the first people, as Carroll referenced, we were the immigrants who did not choose to be immigrants. So we were one of the first people, group of people called immigrants here in this country. And the thing is, we did not have a choice. And again, I go back to the psychological, there were so many things that were embedded in us, laws that were put into place, such as the Jim Crow laws, as we've referenced in a couple of our shows. And then, therefore, some of the other laws that have been put into place. When we think about the welfare system, as Carroll was referring to earlier, you know, and the makeup of what that was initially and how it affected our communities. You know, I think about the movie Claudine, right? That was a good Hollywood depiction of what was happening within our families. You know, James Earl Jones, he could not stay, you know, with Diane Carroll because it would benefit their family if he were to be out of the home when the government officials were coming to check on the family and see about their well-being. It would benefit them financially. They would get more money, you know, more resources. You know, and that, again, that's a Hollywood depiction, but it is a depiction, as Carroll was referring to earlier, of the psychological makeup that we have adapted and adopted over the years. And it's therefore a cycle that is continued, you know, within our community. So then, therefore, you talk about, you know, the American dream. If people are looking at the American dream, they're not just looking at it from, you know, a financial point of view. They're sitting there with their colleagues, you know, at the office, and they're listening. Okay, how do I get this financially? Well, some of the things perhaps they may have mistakenly or maybe have witnessed that some of that is not necessary to connect to the extended family as much as maybe they have before, not remembering and keeping in mind that it was the extended family perhaps that put that person through college or through a trade school to get the position that they actually have, to live in the neighborhood that they actually have. And as you referenced, Pat, to move to the state that they're currently living in because of the migration of their families previously. So, as Carroll referenced, we want to talk to our community directly and say, this has to stop. It's a psychological thing. It's a cycle of a psychological issue that has to be transformed. Obviously, therefore, if it's psychological, it's in our minds. We have to start thinking the family unit is an extended family. We cannot be where we are today if it were not for our families. I could not be here today if it wasn't for my single mother, instilling in me all of the things that she has instilled in me, as far as being a person, a Black person, as far as being a female, as far as being an educated female, and as far as pursuing my dreams, and then as far as staying connected to my family on both sides, regardless of whether she was divorced or not, staying in contact with those families. And then, having those aunties and uncles, the godmoms, the godfathers, but the family friends who I still call my aunt and uncle to this day. And my, family friends that I call my cousins, not, oh, that's friend, Tania. No, that's cousin Tania, because Tania's known me since I was born, and her aunt is my aunt, and that is how we had carried on, so these are some of the things that we need to start working on. It's a psychological thing. And then, yes, we definitely need to think about what is that generational wealth. The thing is, some of us actually have property, right? Some people have property from, the sharecropper days, down in the South, in some of these southern states where their families came from. Well, are they aware of it? And what are they doing about it? And how are they going to continue to build within their families to hold on to these properties and to develop other, wealth that can be generated throughout the generation?
Yes, absolutely. You know what? You're absolutely right about that. And I think we need to change the dynamics of so many of the isms that are in our community. Today on the news, they were saying that a 10-month-old baby was shot on the expressway in a moving car. This was the breaking news story before I came on the air tonight. And the reporters said that the baby was fine, but the family got to the hospital and was acting such fools that the police had to be called for the family. And ladies, I'm having a special show this week to kind of talk about all of this outlandish behavior of our people. And I don't want to sound as if I'm picking on our people, but it makes me wonder what is making us act the way we act nowadays. I've seen several stories in the media. Some young ladies at the Fort Lauderdale airport was mad because their flight was delayed, and they cut up and clowned and threw things at the gate agents. There was a situation this weekend where some young people went to an entertainment complex, and it was a dispute over $4. They tore the place up. We saw where a bunch of young men carjacked an 81-year-old man. These boys was on divvy bikes and carjacked a man on divvy bike. And so I'm wondering what is making, because we didn't act like this. This was not the way our parents acted. This was not the way our grandparents acted. We had been through enough as Black people, and I'm wondering why now more than ever we want to act a fool every damn chance we can get. And I know that might ruffle some feathers, but that's what's on my heart. Why are we acting such fools in this day and age?
I think that that's an age-old question. I think about it all the time, Chad and Alicia, because I know that as a group of people who do not have a clear foundation, you talk, brother, the thought of being miseducated, right? The miseducation of us as Black folk in this country has really produced what you're speaking of, all right? The lack of knowledge of creating our own paradigm for what it looks like to have a respectable community, appropriate responses. Those are the things that guide a group of people. Now, I think the beauty of this country is you have all these cultures coming together. But each of these individuals that come from other spaces and other places come with an ideology of this is what constitutes character in our society, whether it be India, whether it be Nigeria, what have you. These are our negotiables. These are our non-negotiables. My question is, has our community, the African-American community, come collectively together and said, these are our negotiables, these are our non-negotiables? All right. What does it constitute? How do we constitute what is the appropriate way in which we interact as a community, as a people? Much of that was taken from us through our experience as descendants of the enslaved, because much of that was wiped away. But on the other hand, the resilience in African Americans is that even after such a horrific start in this country, look at where we are, where we've been able to move in our evolution. It's just amazing that we're as far as we are. But with that, there hasn't been one voice. There have been pockets of folks who've been able to make it, like your blue blood blacks who just were able to make it through whatever it was they started off. You have generations of African Americans who were educated in the 1800s and the early 1900s. Then you've got the underclass, groups of African Americans who never were able to get educated, generation after generation after generation. So in many ways, we're all over the place, which is what happens when you have systemic racism that dismantles a group of people. And so that's what we're experiencing today. But the question is, how can we, being the three of us on this platform, or other people who feel as though we need a new narrative, what does that mean as far as it relates to how we help those young ladies who did what they did in the airport, or that family that did what they did in the actual hospital? What does that mean for the influence that we have from the educational realm, from the churches that many of us go to, or the mosques, or whatever we're doing? What are we doing at that level, from the spiritual level, to say, let's talk about the expectations of interaction? What does that look like? I still feel as though there's some missed opportunities, team, for those of us who have tried to present what we believe as logical thinking, able to interact with people across the globe in an intelligent manner. Have we extended that to others? Or is it an exclusivity thing? Like, I've got the right stuff and unfortunately you don't. And that's why I think we as a community have to really look inside to say, how are we making it happening on the ground? We have a lot of social service agencies that are trying to build those skills, all right? Individual teachers and principals and others are trying to build those skills. We call on our Black business leaders, all right? We call on the executives, African-American executives in these corporations. Are they, as top executives, calling for opportunities maybe for more and more young people to come into the businesses and see what etiquette looks like? All right, we've got a lot of ways in which we can perhaps address some of these ills that we know have allowed us to get in this condition today. Because I do agree with you, in general, the society was a different society where there were particular parameters of engagement that may have occurred during our parents' era. But with mass media, which is often what? Promoted this in-your-face mentality, the lack of structure, the lack of respect. That impedes upon folks who do not have a root more greatly than anyone. And unfortunately, African Americans, many of us have not had the opportunity to experience Sankofa and really understand our root. All right. And I'm not saying just necessarily Africa, because you have your African Americans who will be quick to say, I'm not African. Whatever your family value root is, do we have a common language for what etiquette looks like? And the question is out there. I'm putting it out there. The answer, I think we all know. And it's no.
No.
And that's those types of incidences that we have.
Let me say this real quick, and then I'm gonna come to you, Alicia. Again, this is a free show I do every night, free. And I hope that people will take away from this show, wow, very interesting dialogue, free information, how we can help each other, how we can be better. I'm lucky if 5 people share this show. I'm lucky if people even start a watch party. I'm begging and pleading for people to please follow me, please subscribe. I get emails all day long from companies that say to me, look, brother, we can get you 200 million followers for $200. I want an organic show. I want this show to be real, but I think we as a race of people, we're not interested in really helping each other. We'll donate some coats. We'll give some canned goods. We'll buy a ticket to that dance to support it. We feel that if we throw our money at it, oh, it'll be okay. When really you are related to most people bad. I almost said something else. They're out here cutting up and clowning, but we don't want no ownership. They're my other cousins. They're my other relatives. And really, if we look at ourselves as a race of people, we are one. And I guarantee you, if I'm in a store and one of them are cutting up and clowning, everybody gonna look at me as a black man like them yo people. And we say it to each other all the time. Girl, look at yo people. Them yo cousins. And it's a running joke, but it's the truth. Alicia, you want to comment on this?
I agree with what you're saying, and of course I agree with what Carroll's saying. You know, it's the I think it's, I'm gonna bring it up. It's Pookie. The thing is, we are some of us in our society want to keep Pookie on the street, right? Remember Pookie from the last show? We want to keep on the street, and we're not saying, listen, brother, nephew, cousin, friend, you know, let me show you a different way, right? Instead, we're being judgmental of Pookie and I'll say Monet, if you will. No disrespect to anyone who has those nicknames at all, but using it as a reference, you know, within our community. The thing is that we are everything that you see today. That is obviously who we are. We came from slavery, yes. That has to be taught clearly and concisely, because obviously, again, it's being brought up still in government, right? And those are for various different reasons. So we have to teach, we have to educate. You know, our own. We have to do it within our own immediate families. We have to do it within the education system. You know, who is the young lady? What is it? The 1619 Project? She received the Pulitzer Prize last year, you know, to talk about slavery, to talk more, get in more depth about the community, about our communities within you know, and talk about and include more in our curriculum, because the stories have not been clearly told. If we start talking about who we are and the fact that the reason, as Carroll referenced, the reason why we are strong or we are here still standing today, because the people who were taken from the continent, they weren't the weaker ones. They can't be the ones who are going to do the labor, right? And help build another country. They were the stronger ones. So we stand literally on the backs of people who are the strongest from the continent in various different countries over there, because they needed the strongest people, both physically and mentally and spiritually, to build, to rebuild, if you will, the country to where it is today. That is why we were also there for, since then, the ones that were the essential workers, right? We have been the doulas, the ones who have been continuously nursing other people's babies. Why? Because this is strong, right? Not going to point to, but you know what I'm saying. You know, because we are strong as a Black woman, you know, and as a Black community. You know, we have continuously been the ones to nurse, both literally and pictorially, you know, other communities, right? Because we are the strong ones. So we need to teach this. We need to talk about this within our immediate families. We need to talk about it within the education system, because again, it's a psychological thing. If children start understanding who we are as a people and the struggles, not just that, oh, we struggle, we went through this, we went through that. No, actually, we were the stronger ones that came to this continent. We were the ones that continued to nurse other people's babies. We were the ones that hung in there in the factories. We were the ones that became sharecroppers and therefore continued to till the lands across the country. So we knew about farming long time ago. We knew about preserving the foods the scraps, if you will, that we currently eat sometimes at New Year's Eve, right? Some of us, or just even, knowing how to make preserves, right? Jams. We know how to sustain ourselves. And people are remembering those things and telling others during this pandemic, because we have to. We have to remember how to sustain ourselves during this time, because we don't know what is going on. Yeah, we can go to the grocery stores, but as we talked about earlier, there's funding that is that's going to be diminished from people's paychecks and their unemployment checks. So we have to tell the stories. We have to teach ourselves. And the other thing is we are who we are. And there are reasons why our society has been broken down. This systematic racism has extended in every area of our society as a people. So we cannot shun people who come from single parent households, whether they were married or not, right? We have to grab those children and those young adults and those adults and say, you're still a part of the extended family. These are the opportunities for you. No, not everyone is going to go to a 4-year college, 6-year college, 8-year college, 12-year, MD, right? What you can do is say you can go to vocational school. You can get a certification, get a certificate in just about anything right now online. You have a cell phone, right? In several countries, I remember when, I was visiting and working in several countries in Africa. A lot of people had cell phones and therefore had some internet access. It was stagnant. The same thing within our communities. You may not have a computer, but there are companies that are offering you a cell phone for a flat fee, a month, and there are all kinds of cell towers all over the place. You can research and you can do your thing. Your eyes may be squinting, but there are ways that you can get the things that you need.
Right.
Get a certificate in something. But we have to tell our own that you can. We cannot shun the communities of people who, the children and the young adults who come from single parent homes, whether, again, they were married or not married, right? Because I think some of us have actually jumped on to that bandwagon also. But it's not just our communities who are having children, quote unquote, out of wedlock or who are going through divorce situation. So we have to instill, that love, and we have to talk about who we are and whose we have been, and the fact that, for example, Christianity, yes, some people look at Christianity and they say, or God, Christianity, the Muslim faith, whatever you believe in, but God in general, they'll say, well, the people who believe in God were the ones who enslaved us. Yeah, you're right. If you go and see some of those ships, you'll see they had a chapel right in the middle of the ship, while our ancestors were down below in those dungeons, right? On those quote unquote castles that people call it, right?
Yeah.
But if you did if we do our research and we teach the spirituality from where we actually come from and who we are innately, we'll understand those different things, and we won't detach ourselves from the spiritual girth of who we are as a people. And then we can help others. And we'll show and prove once again, we are strong. We are still here, and we're going to be here. And it's not about us. It's not about them. It's about we, because we're right here in this society and societies all over the world. We are the majority in the societies around the world. So we have to work together as we
Oh
see
my
what's
God. I love this. That was a kumbaya moment. That was a thank you, Lord, I appreciate you moment. It was. Dr. Carroll, you okay down there?
Yeah, I've got so much in this mind. I'm telling you, Chad. I mean, this form that you're putting out is strictly right on target, what we
Yes, it
need.
is.
And I
Yes.
pray that there you can get continued blessings of support and growth,
Yes.
because you are calling us on the carpet. And when I say calling us on the carpet, there are times when it's time to be called on the carpet. And there are times when we have to be faced with the expectation for consistent responsibility, which means that we have to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and say, what have I done to improve my lot? What have I done to elevate the condition? Where we can't consistently point the finger outward. Now, as we've been discussing this issue about systemic racism, there is no doubt that it is an ill, an ugly, an insidious situation. All of America must take responsibility for systemic racism. It's alive and well. And I don't think very many folks of any hue will say that that's not true. Once they come to that realization, learn more, grow more, be able to do more, and say more intelligently about the subject. However, within this context, there has to be a focus on consistent responsibility for each one of us. And what comes to my mind is the fact that we come from all different situations as Black peoples in this country. Many of us, as you said, Kat, the Chicago story, generations coming up from the South, being able to speak to that experience, the legacy, the warmth of other suns, that beautiful book that spoke of the beauty of the Black migration, the strength of folks from the South, something to celebrate, how we established ourselves in these northern industrial centers, what it took to make that journey. I give all ups, big ups and thumbs ups and big ups and every other kind of ups to my brothers and sisters who went through that experience. Others of us as African Americans may not have gone through that experience. We have those of us who came from the immigrant experience into this country and did not come up from the South. All right. We have situations, I'm generationally very far removed from the South. My grandmother, 102 years old, when she died several years ago, was from the state of Indiana. So I don't have a close Southern tie. But nonetheless, each of us came to whom we are through an experience, and that is a shared experience of being Black in America. And it doesn't really matter if one comes from a background where you have generations of college educated folk. It doesn't really matter if one comes from a background where they have generations of, like my friend and sister Alicia said, sharecropper background. All right. There are many, many blue collar working background. I almost said blackground because that's what I mean.
Right.
As Black people, the blackground. And it's a powerful one. And one thing we know is that there has to be a consistent responsibility for us to create the expectations of what it means to be able to present ourselves as a proud and prominent people in this society. And that requires us saying to those who maybe don't project in a way that is beneficial. Like you said earlier, Chad, yes, I don't remove myself. You don't remove yourself. Alicia doesn't remove herself from the person in the store who's cutting up. See, I know that I'm them and they are me. And I agree that the society sees us as the same. There is no idea of this Black respectability or Black exclusivity. I'm not part of that. In a racialized society, yes, we are all part of that. And we can't separate ourselves from that individual that didn't present the way we perhaps wanted them to present or did not present in a way that we would have presented. We have to then say to ourselves, in the eyes of others, there may be that assumption that all are similar, right? But we also have to be the catalyst to say, what does it take to create a new paradigm? I don't want to sound real global or thinking in terms of any sort of fantasy. I'm talking about real concrete behavior. I'll give you an example. Going to the grocery store the other day, one of my favorite jewels in the world. I'll tell you the address, 63rd and Cottage Grove. Love the jewel. But what I noticed was this particular employee that I had, a young African-American male, was so professional in his demeanor. The way he spoke with me, the terms he used addressing me, the level of his intonation, very, very professional. So what did that require of me as a grown African-American woman who's highly educated? I responded to him. I said, young man, you are very professional. Tell me about your work here. You're a model employee, aren't you? He kept saying to me, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I'm trying to be. That one little extension of support probably meant a lot to him. It meant that you're doing a good job. You have a future. What does it take for each of us in this community to reach to someone like that? What does it take for us to say, and I know there may be fear in some of us, oh my goodness, if I speak, will so-and-so turn around and curse me out? All right, but I don't think it always has to be that way. I have made comments to young people and other people who I've seen on the dredges many times in my life, and I've never been cursed out, not yet. Because I think often these people are looking for input that is not condescending, but that is elevating, uplifting, and affirming to many of them. And I think that's the situation when you spoke earlier, Chad, about other communities, how responsible they are for the members of their community. They take a level of responsibility. This is our way as a culture. This is how we do it. And I'm not ever saying that we don't have the right to uniqueness. But when you come from a background where your very root was pulled out of the soil, which is the story of African Americans, you need to find a way to go back and fetch it. Sankofa. We have to begin to create our paradigms of expectation, such as what is going on in our community with the rates of Black on Black violence and crime. Where are the dialogues and expectations that say, how do we address this? What does it take? And I know that it's not an answer that's easy, but it's a realization that this is what we'll take on our block. This is what we want. This is what we expect for people to report. This is what we know are the expectations for safety in our community. It can't always be the turn the other head. I'm glad that's not me. I'm the acceptable Black person. It cannot be that. When we see the Black family and we see situations where we have young people having children without marriage. Now I say this because I have them in my family and I love my little cousins and I would support them when they have their children. But I'll never be short on the dialogue of what are your plans? Have you considered another route? Are you thinking about getting married? If you're not, are we certain that the young man and the young woman are going to be contributors? Some people don't get married, but yet there's a solid nucleus around that child, which means the father is present, the mother is present, the child sees both his or her parents. What stops that dialogue? What stops that dialogue? That dialogue that says, this is what research says is best for a child, which is the presence of those two parents. Two healthy parents supporting a child. A child needs to see both. Why not have that dialogue with some of our young people? Why not give them other options or share with them strategies? I find myself doing that all the time, where I'm saying, yes, I appreciate what you're doing, but I want you to think about what are your other options? Or how can this relationship end up in something where you have that cohesion? All right. So that's where I think we need to call ourselves at this point on the carpet as a community. As we still look at issues of systemic racism and issues of the ills of the past, we're not at all saying that those are not critical. And we're not at all saying that that is not part of the seed, which has created some of the mayhem we're experiencing today. It is the main catalyst. But where do we take individual responsibility as Black people of purpose and say enough is enough? Let us all, each one reach one to try to support one another in our development. I'm throwing that out there to you both, Alicia and Chad. What do you think?
Well, you know what, Doctor? I agree with you 100%. Let me say this real quick. For those of you all that are sending me messages about the feedback, unfortunately, this is we're in a Wi-Fi society and there's not much I can do. So I'm muting the mics when guests are not talking so that we can cut some of that feedback out. But Doctor, I'm with you 100%. This actually is a perfect segue into our final part of this conversation tonight. We've got to do better. I believe in teaching each other. I believe in helping each other. I'm so glad for you to say, Dr. Carroll, that there's a young man at that jewel on 63rd and Cottage that is showing an example. Because I'm going to tell you this much. Every time I go into a store, I speak to the cashier. A lot of times I get the cashiers with the snuffle up against eyelashes. They barely want to speak. They barely want to give you your change back. They mad because they want to be at work. And I oftentimes say to them, look, sweetheart, I started off as a cashier. I started off bagging groceries, and I get it and I understand it. But, you know, being nice and being about reciprocity and showing people that you are appreciative of them spending money at your job is really, you know, essential as a part of your personality, your character, all of that. And so that's why I'm so glad for you to say that you met a young Black man that exuded that type of energy, because a lot of times I get the opposite end of that in stores, and that's really disheartening to me in this day and age.
Yeah.
So, ladies, I want to continue on in our conversation. I want to talk about friendships. The first one on the list is the female-female friendship. The one thing that I will say is that women develop relationships and friendships in ways that I think is absolutely incredible. Let's talk about the female-female friendship, and you can even add the caveat of your friendship with each other, and how do women develop friendships with each other?
You know, I think what happens is, you know, for Carroll and I, we met in school at University of Chicago, and she was working at one of the high schools as a assistant principal at one of the high schools where I was working part-time while I was a full-time student. And I'm trying to remember, I mean, she was my point of contact at that school. And we realized that we had a lot in common. Our conversations were always extensive beyond anything that I was doing in the school. We just, you know, and so every time I would go there, I would not just connect with her. I would talk. We would share. And then eventually we started going places, going to each other's homes, meeting each other's families. And it has grown and flourished over 20 years, nearly 20 years now. And, you know, so I think one of the main things is in female relationships, they are part of that backbone, right? They are part of that extended family network that we have within our community. You know, women are the backbone of our community, you know, and so when we get together, I think that is why, you know, our relationships are so rich, because we are the backbone, period, of communities. You know, nothing to take away from men in any community, but you know, women are the breadwinners, and if they're not, I mean, I'm sorry, the woman that they're the ones.
Right.
That's another topic, another discussion. You know, the ones who are the nurturers. You know, whether they have had children or not. You know, we're always nurturing. You know, it's a part of who we are innately. And some are more so and some are not, you know, not to label any female and put them in a box. But I think what happens is in our community, African American community in particular, that is for the most part who we are. So we have this thing of naturally connecting as part of our extended family. I have friends that I have known since I was a child. One of my girlfriends was here visiting this weekend as our daughter was moving here to the city area. And I told her, I said, you know, when people say that I've known your mom, or I've known you for all of my life, I said, it's actually really true for us. We've known one another since we were 5 years old, right? And since we're just 25, that's only right. I'm kidding.
Right. That's amazing.
Right. And so a lot of us have those long relationships, and we've bonded because of, you know, we met, you know, because, you know, and I'm talking in general, the bond, because we met, we share commonalities, but, you know, and sometimes situations, you know, whether it's family situations with living in a community, growing up in the suburbs, you know, and maybe being, you know, a few of the Black communities or Black families in the area, and, you know, being able to connect. Or if you grow up in the city, you know, and you live in, you know, various different homes in the city, whether it's a home, apartment, project housing, there are different ways that we connect, and we draw upon one another and automatically become a part of that family to a certain degree. And that's the richness of who we are as women, and who we are as Black women in particular.
I love it. Dr. Carroll, anything you want to add to that?
Well, when I first met Alicia, when she was providing the technology services to our students, I saw a will in her. I thought she was a good role model for the young ladies. At that time, I was assistant principal of Nikola Tesla, the former high school. It's no longer open for pregnant and parenting students in Chicago's Woodlawn community. And so I was very pleased about what she was bringing to our young women. And it just basically culminated in opportunities for us to continue to dialogue on multiple levels, which is, this lasted over time. Now, what I want to say is that friendship, the real test of friendship, Chad, is not about being in up each other's face 24/7 all day, every day. There have been periods where Alicia and I haven't seen each other for years. When there is a connection with individuals, that stays true. And there doesn't have to be a lot of window dressing or facade to keep that going. What I will say, when we talk about women exist in this society. But when we talk about the leaders as it relates to the concepts of what womanhood should be and systems of power and control, many of those systems of power and control are dominated by men. So often women place themselves in the context of what it is a man thinks about them, which I don't want to say that there's not genuine relationships between women, because there are some very powerful, genuine relationships, but there are also some very fragile, phony relationships between some women. And unfortunately, often that is built on external influences. Who's the prettiest one of all? Who's the most socially acceptable? Who turned out the best? Some of those pieces that unfortunately do not constitute a genuine, authentic friendship. So women have to be careful of that. I've seen some unfortunate competition between young women and mature women, women of all ages, that is sometimes based on a cattiness that's not healthy. I would call on women to be authentic with one another. Look for the core of why they're attracted to one another. It's not a situation, we talked about colorism before on our last platform. It's not a situation where all the light-skinned girls are running together, or all the slim girls are running together, or all this sorority or that sorority are running together. Although big ups to my sister friends who are in sororities, I'm not. There has to be some authenticity in relationships. I do think, Chad, that society has given women a bit more leverage to show their emotionalism over men. Men have not been afforded that, which I think in some ways may challenge the way in which men display their friendship for one another. There may be a level of kind of guarded behavior so as not to be categorized or whatever that means, or segmented based on other people's perceptions that may or may not be necessary, even correct. But we know that men often hold back on their emotional side, which may not always be the best, because there can be some very powerful relationships built between men too. But women, on the other hand, have been given kind of a little more leverage to show their emotions to one another. But at the same time, I do think as women, we have to be very careful that we're not influenced by some of the more superficial aspects of our society, which can on the outside make it look like, oh, this group of women are really running together, they're tight. But it really hasn't been built on a real solid, authentic foundation. There's a level of competitiveness that runs with some women that's very unhealthy. Often it's built on external perceptions, what men think of them. And that can be very damaging. I would say with Alicia and I, our friendship came together across many lines. Definitely our initial desire to be game changers in the field of education. All right. Our desire to talk about the issues of the community, to talk about our own personal, emotional issues very authentically with each other. We have never presented ourselves to one another as flawless. Both Alicia and I will discuss our flaws very openly and honestly and supportively to one another. That to me is the foundation of friendship. To be able to say, this is my challenge, and I trust you enough that anything you say, whether I like it or not, is for my betterment. So Alicia and I don't think of us as she, foo. We're always tipping back and smiling and giggling. No, there have been some very heated conversations. There have been times when the phone is slammed down. All right. And that's been because we care enough about each other to share what we like. And if at a certain time it's not what we want to hear, the phone may get put down. But the key is that real friendships are authentic, real friendships are resilient, and real friendships hold no grudges. And that's how I would define our friendship.
You know what? I think that speaks of all friendships, though, because, I was going to break this down, but I think that's the dynamic of which we should all base our friendships on. A lot of people, are just astounded that I am a member of the LGBTQ plus community, but I have as many straight male friends, or actually more straight male friends than I do gay male friends. I have very few gay male friends. A, I don't like the cattiness. B, it's always competition. I am very conservative. And so most of my straight male friends have been my friends forever. They've been like my brothers. They've been protectors. They have been confidants. And my gay male friends that I do have, we consider ourselves very close and hold each other in high regard. So it's not much of a difference. And then a majority of my friendships are with women and have always been with women. And I love when women who I'm cool with, their men are cool with the fact that I'm the woman's best friend. You know what I'm saying? And there was a time period in life that was unheard of. Now it's very accepting, and people love it, and I love it. And I feel as if my life is at its best point now when it comes to friendship, male, female, and everything in between. If you would have asked me this 20 years ago, I'd have told you, hell no, the most complicated thing ever. But now I think the dynamic is just beautiful because people are accepting how people love and accept each other.
Right. I agree. It's interesting. As we were putting together this topic again this week, I had no idea that this coming weekend I would actually hear several messages about friendships. As I was listening, messages, church messages, pastors that I listen to. And I remember one of them was talking about the story of the 4 men who knew that their friend was so sick, and they wanted to take it to this man that they knew was, they heard was a healer, right? And they knew that this man was so sick that he could not move. So what they decided to do is the four of them grabbed this man, put him on a cot, I guess, I assume, I don't know exactly, this is biblical times, but I'm paraphrasing for the sake of, the point that I'm trying to make. He had reliable friends, no questions, no saying, oh gosh, you're so heavy, I'm not going to be the one to help carry you, based on the story that we read. And they carried and they pushed him down this ceiling or roof or rooftop or something of that nature. But the point of it is that these were people that were so invested in their friend, because they knew that this was someone that needed something, no questions asked, no drama, right? And they had other people to help in helping this person to get to the point of where they need it to be. And that is what we need to do more of within our community in particular, but also within our society, regardless of what color, what hue we are, ethnicity, etc. If we see that this is someone that we are kin to, have commonalities with, we should not hesitate to get to know them, because they may actually end up be one of our best friends. And they may actually be one of the people that we can rely on, or they can rely on us to carry them through to the next point where they need to be when they're feeling their worst or going through their worst. And to get a little more personal, Carroll and I had a moment this week, right? But at the end of the day, we were like, listen, I don't care about what happened, the other day. The bottom line is you are my sister, and I need you to understand that no matter what, I'm here for you, because I know no matter what, you've shown and proven to me that you're here for me. And this is the thing that happens in friendships. It will ebb and flow, but you understand the foundation. If you share those foundation in friendship and relationships in general, then you can get past whatever the isms are literally of that day, or whatever may be, ill-conceived, wrongly perceived, misconception, mistake, etc. Whatever is going on, you can get past that. And, and again, this is a part of who we are as a people, and we need to remember that. It is a part of our extension of who we are, and it supports who we are mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that is how we can move forward, because sometimes our network, as one of my family members says, our network is our net worth,
Which is very true. I agree with you 100%. Well, ladies, we have definitely, I felt, covered it all this evening. Is there anything else that we've left out of this? If not, I want you both to give your closing statements. This is not our last time doing this. I'll be calling, depending on how this pandemic pans out, as Grandma would say, how the pandemic pan out, baby. Y'all may be back, you know what I'm saying? So, ladies, who would like to go first and give us some closing thoughts and deliver a great message? Dr. Carroll, I just love you. Look, did you two ladies have a spat this week? I love it.
Because when you value a person, you're supposed to have spat.
Yeah.
You're a thinker. People who are thinkers have spat.
Right.
It's healthy. It's healthy. And especially when we come from divergent, hey, I may have this view, you've got that view. It's vigorous discussion. It's a healthy exchange with the goal of each one of us learning more, doing more, growing more, so that we can be cohesive. So I'm all about healthy spats, right? It's those unhealthy spats that really have no purpose that we want to limit in life.
Right.
I think that as we think about the idea of the Black family, and we think about our positioning in the world scope with all groups of people, we have to recognize that we have a consistent responsibility as a community to ourselves. And I say this because I do respect the fact that we're calling on the carpet institutional racism. We're saying no longer will we support this. We're making it clear. I mean, I'm having friends and colleagues of all races and all hues to respond to that, to begin to say, you're right. I have lived in privilege, all right? And I'm not ashamed of how I've lived, but I am ashamed if I don't take action to ensure that I'm part of the solution and not part of the problem. And I'll say, that's right, sister. That's right, brother. Learn more, do more, be better. I'm here for you. We can work together. I'm saying that to my European American brothers and sisters. They're saying it to me. Other folks who are not classified as Black people are saying the same things. There's a lot of coming to kind of this self-understanding of who I am, who I have not been, who I need to be, and what I want to be in my future as an individual and as a person in this society, as an interrupter to racism, as an advocate in social justice, as an anti-racist. And I'm really proud of my brothers and sisters worldwide who are doing that. But I'm also calling my brothers and sisters who classify themselves as Black peoples, whether they be Africans, Caribbeans, European Blacks, African Americans, Asian Blacks, wherever they classify themselves as Black peoples, to take a look at themselves. We've got work to do. We need to break down the barriers, all right? We need to break down the stereotypes that have developed amongst our communities, such as this is what an African American is like, or this is what an African is like, this is what a Caribbean is like, etc. We've been taught those often by our exposure to the colonizers. We've built up our own ideologies and stereotypes against one another. And I call on us tonight to stop that. Step out and get to know from a diverse platform. We don't need to take a look at the one person in the airport who may have our hue who's going off and acting in a way that doesn't represent how we'd act. We don't need to look at that person and say, this is a Black American. No, we're stopping that right now. It's each of us as an expectation to do more, to find out more, and to grow more. And that means we have to look at ourselves. We have to look at how we contribute to the positive advancements of our society, or how we contribute to what we see today as the ills of society. Each one of us has the ability to reach out and say, like what I said to the young man in the Jewel, thank you for your professionalism, young man. Thank you. Only thing I got from that young brother was, thank you, ma'am. I'm glad you noticed. I really try hard. Who's to say that that won't propel that young brother, probably about 19 years old, 20 years old, to continue that throughout his life? Who's to say that that won't propel him to maybe take a risk to say to one of his colleagues who who are not quite as crisp, who didn't produce kind of the same reaction in me? Who's to say that he may say, you know, this lady said when I did this, and this is what she said to me. Have you thought about doing that? Each one reach one. That's the key. It makes a big difference in how we are perceived through the whole world and by the whole world, and how we perceive ourselves as a Black community. I call on each of us as we talk about the number of crimes being committed. I say to each of us, is that how we want to be defined as a race? A race of people who kill each other? Let's be clear. Black on Black crime is an issue. What does it take to at least put that narrative out there? I call on the churches. I call on the other houses of worship. Let's shift the dialogue. Let's integrate the dialogue that we speak about when we go every Sunday or every Friday, or when we're going to pray and talk about God. And let's talk about God's expectation for our behavior in our communities. Let's relate it to things that can make us rise to the occasion so that we gain the respect as a community, internally and externally. And in this moment where we are focusing on isms, where we are focusing on institutionalization of hierarchy, racism, and hate, we must focus on our own positioning in creating healthy Black spaces, healthy Black community, and a healthy Black family. And so that is our charge. And that is my hope in whomever I touch for the rest of my years on this earth. That is my hope.
Well, as the good minister would say, let the church say amen. Sister Carroll, I'm going to pass around the collection plate. You did benediction number one.
Okay,
And
here comes
I'm sure Dr. Ross. I'm sure Dr. Ross. She the cleanup woman, so I'm sure she gonna follow on up and just finish the conversation. But you're right, Doctor. You're absolutely right. That if we don't help each other, if we don't change the paradigm in which we view each other, the world will never view us differently either. So that's my mission.
It's up to me. You know that old adage. If it's to be, it's up to me. And at the same time, team, we're not exonerating racism. We're not saying to our white brothers and sisters who have to recognize that they profited from racism. Now, their choice to be an advocate or an interrupter is their choice alone. And I'm seeing folks say, hey, you know, Carroll, I want to get involved. What can I do? Hey, Carroll, this is something that came to mind. Even if it's posting Black history on a Facebook and saying, I learned about a notable African American. That's a step. That's a step in saying, I see you. And we have to celebrate that. But at the same time, as we're talking about dismantling systems of oppression from an institutional level, we have to talk about internally each and every day. And going back to where Alicia said, Pookie, we love you, Pookie. I have a neighbor named Pookie. I love her, Pookie. You know who you are. I love you. But at the same time, we have to say, Pookie, let's talk about your future. Or Pookie, I'm proud of what you're doing out here. What does it take for us when we see things happening, especially in spaces where we're safe? Let's say, for instance, the grocery store. And we see the level of service that you receive, chat. What does it take to say, let's talk about that? Even if it means going over to the manager saying, I want to continue to patronize you. I believe in this institution, but I have this concern. And I'm not trying to get this person in trouble. I'm trying to help them elevate themselves. Concurrent to that means when we go through the drive-through window and we see that employee, that essential worker who's at McDonald's or who's at White Castle, and they're very professional, why not say, may I speak to your manager? And they usually get scared because they only expecting the negative. And then you say, manager, when it comes time for a raise, this person deserves one because of A, B, C. So it's our expectation, I think, as members of this Black community, each one reach one. When we see the lady that might be exposing herself in ways that we're saying, is that quite right? It doesn't mean that we get into an argument. But I have had this experience where I have actually had conversations with strangers. And I know God protects me, and I thank my Heavenly Father, but they've never responded that way to me. And I think they've never responded negatively and hatefully to me because I don't come to them with condemnation, degradation, and hate. And I think they sense that, and they respond to my energy because they know that it is with love. And many times I've had folks listen, and they tell me, oh, I didn't mean to wear this, or I was just trying. Even that conversation to mean what? They just might think about it. Maybe not, but maybe so for the next time out. Maybe. Okay. Consistent responsibility. Consistent.
I love it. I do. I really do. Dr. Ross, Alicia L. Ross, what would you like to add in closing, my dear?
Of course, I agree with what Carol was saying, and you know, appreciate the experience that she did share regarding the grocery store. You know, I remember when the protests of this year became aggressive last month in particular, or the end of May. You know, what I ended up doing is, you know, I noticed that on some of the cable stations or some of the, like the Netflix and Prime Video and so forth, they had and have categories called Black Lives Matter. And so what I did at that time, because I work in my current position, I work with pretty much all, you know, white women. And we're close. We celebrate. They helped me celebrate my birthday this year. We went to the park and had a good time at one of the parks up here. And we're always having some type of dialogue. So I felt comfortable when I saw these movies listed to write down movies and documentaries that I saw on a couple of those channels and to send a text. We're always texting one another, checking in and so forth. And to send a text to say, listen, these are some of the movies. If you want to know more about the things that I've been talking about and sharing with you throughout the years that we've been together, why don't you look at some of these movies? Because this will help you understand why people are touting Black Lives Matter. Whether you want to receive, you already understand it or not. I didn't say that part. But, I shared with them some of those movies and documentaries. And no, it wasn't the ones on Martin Luther King Jr. Thank God for the elder. It wasn't, regarding any of the ones that we commonly hear about and know about, but it was talking about our struggles from people that we don't always hear and learn about. And so my point is, we have to continuously teach our history because, again, these stations are showing that Black Lives Matter to the point where they're saying, you know what? I remember when so-and-so did this documentary and I didn't feature it on my Netflix or on my Prime Video, but they proposed it to me. I have it somewhere in the library. Let me go ahead and put this as a part of a category. Let me make a category and now put this a part of that category, right? Because some of these movies and documentaries that I have seen, they are dated back in the early 2000s. And I'm like, well, I didn't see that on here before, when I was looking for some movies and documentaries to watch. But I say thank you. I'm not shunning them. I say thank you for putting this out there, because during this health pandemic, physical health pandemic that we're in, people are shut in and they want to know. They need to know. Those who are not out protesting, and but first and foremost, those who are not the essential workers, the medical professionals and others, our male personnel, and others who are essential workers in the community. Another point I want to make to that effect regarding being up here and being around predominantly white community. I remember when my neighbor mentioned that there was going to be a BLM march. I was surprised. Because I have experienced I have experienced racism up here, both overt and not overt racism. And I have addressed it each and every time, respectfully so, but definitely to the point where they understood, and therefore having those conversations with some of the people that, I would present some of my concerns with. And then seeing an end result being a positive end result because I did speak up, right? So I remember, so when my neighbor told me, who told me about this BLM protest, at first I said, I said to myself, I'm not going to that. I have said what I needed to say throughout every single store establishment that I go to up here. Again, respectfully so, have had conversations extensive. But then he wouldn't stop. He kept ringing the bell. And I said, okay, I'm coming down. And I remember going to the protest. It was a march at first. And when I looked behind me and looked around, looked down the street and saw the people coming, just continuously marching. I was nearly in tears. Yes, for, the brother Floyd and Sister Taylor, and all of the others, Sister Bland, who have experienced this, horrific, brutality from those officers that are not good, because we know there are ones that are, including in my own family. And when I saw these people of a hue that was not mine, I said, you know what? Change is happening and change is going to happen. And so I have taken it, I took upon myself to start reading, going to the news, and I would type in, I would do a Google search, and Carroll knows this. I'll say, what are the changes that have happened since the protest and the marches for Black Lives Matter? And I see all of these different laws and acts being put into place in cities and states where people are saying, you know what, maybe the federal government is not going to do it, but I still have a voice. I still have a right as a mayor. Still have a right as a governor, as a council person, and I'm going to change this community to this degree. I'm going to stand up, just like the mayor, did in Portland, who's protesting in the midst of all the stuff that's going on, all the horrific things that are happening in his community, with the protesters and others, I'm sure, obviously, who have ill will during something that is positive. So my thing is, we have to remember who we are. We as a community have to educate ourselves, and we have to educate others, and we have to not shun others for the level of education they have, where they are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We have to pull them together. And as Carroll said, the churches have to do it. The mosques have to do it. Whichever quote unquote religious institution, because we as a people are religious people, no matter which one of those religions we're choosing, right? And then the community, we have the Boys and Girls Clubs, we have the YMCAs in our communities. These places need to be more and accountable, because there was a time when they started, that was their purpose, to help the community, be in their community, to get the kids off of the street, to give resources, job resources, different options. That's what they were there for. I don't hear about it too much anymore. I actually used to work at one of those, but if there are other organizations, let's do that. We do have millionaires, and we do have billionaires and thousandaires in our communities, all over the country. You all need to get together. If you can't do it, I understand you're busy making those millions, those billions, and those thousands, if you will, the six figures. Then have a team, put together something so that you can teach the youth. You can teach the young adults, but you can also teach the adults who need something right now, and specifically during this pandemic. What is it that they can do? How can you help them? Where can you invest your money in our community so that we can see an equal playing field, so that we can feel like we're in an equal playing field, as we think and as we educate ourselves of the fact that we were kings and queens before we got here. When we got here, we continued our traditions. We were the strongest ones that were brought here. That is why we have survived. There are many stories out there, about people, Harriet Tubman, yes, but then Nat Turner and others who have survived, who have fought for who we are today, just on a basic level, so we need to understand that. We need to educate. And those people who have the finances to invest, now is the time to invest. While the doors are closed, while people are trying to find something, while all this crime is happening and increasing in all of our cities around this country, because young adults and kids, they don't have anything to do, or they're being fed psychologically the wrong things at this time because they're so vulnerable, because this is a quote unquote weak time. Get out there, please, and help more than what you have done. And those who haven't done anything, do so. And also, we need to tell ourselves that we come from a community and we are still a part of the community. We're doing some powerful things in our society. Do your research. We do have things in every single sector of this society, this American society, and this global society, where we have quote unquote advanced, and we have a face in every single sector of the society. And that is what we need to teach our own. We need to continue to teach ourselves, and we need to continue to teach the youth. And we need to continue to have dialogue. So thank you, chat, for another opportunity, for an extensive opportunity during this month of Hotter Than July. Topic.
Hotter than July, baby. You ladies have knocked
Thank
Look,
you,
you
Carol,
ladies.
for continuing the sisterhood.
Oh, I love you both. You ladies have knocked it out the ballpark. I'm sitting here reading comments and text messages that are being sent to me. Look, somebody said this could be an HBO special. That you know, we could really sit down and change a lot of different things. Of course, we still need to sit down and have our social distance lunch. But I'm thinking of a couple of different things that we can do to continue to keep this dialogue going. It is important that we keep this type of dialogue where it should be. We want to take a few moments to send our thoughts and prayers out to the family of U.S. Representative Mr. John Lewis. As you guys all know, he is the first African American to lie in state at the Capitol. And so he is there. And this will be a part of a week-long celebration of the life and times. Yesterday, it was so moving to see his body being taken over the Edmund Pettus Bridge and just moving in many different ways. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow night. Coming up on the Tuesday night show, my brother from another mother, Mr. Chris Avent, will be here with us tomorrow night. We'll also welcome to the show a Broadway veteran. He has performed in such shows as Kiss of a Spider Woman, Jelly's Last Jam, Sophisticated Ladies. He's been in many television, movies, and regional and national touring companies. Mr. Adrian Bailey will be here with us tomorrow night, and we're going to talk about a wonderful campaign to get everybody out to vote. We are 99 days from the election. Tomorrow will be 98 days, and we'll talk about the importance of voting. And then we'll meet Mr. Quentin Curry of the Black Firemen's Brigade here in Chicago. And Quentin's on a mission to encourage as many of our young people as possible to think about becoming EMTs and firefighters. And so that's a great way for Pookie and Nene and all of them to go into a career and make good money and be very proud of themselves and serving other people. Don't you agree, ladies?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yes. Right. All right. Well, ladies, I love you both so much. Everybody has enjoyed this show tonight. They thought it was just such a great show. I don't know what I would do without the two of you. And just imagine we met at a concert. That, you know, who knew? Who knew the power of friendship? The power of friendship. Yes. Well, Dr. Carroll, thank you so much for taking your son's college roommate in and helping that. Yes, absolutely. Alicia, I love you so very much. Ladies, have a beautiful night. We'll talk soon. Great show. Every time we do this, the show goes longer and longer. This is almost like a flight to Europe now. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I love you guys so very much. Don't forget to complete your census, everybody. That is so important. Thank you, Alicia, for reminding us to do that. I need you guys to do me a huge favor. Go over to YouTube, subscribe to The Real Chat Daddy Show. Easy, simple, free, does not cost you anything. We appreciate you guys so much for doing that. Go over to The Real Chat Daddy Show on Facebook. Subscribe to that page as well, too. And ladies, I love you both. God bless you. All right, take a visit to therealchatdaddy.com for more information about yours truly. Here it is right there, therealchatdaddy.com. I'll be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. with another great show. I love you all. Have a great night. Bye. Here we go.
Good night.
Yep, here we go.